Think you're on. Yes, you're on the screen. Can you say something, Jean?
Test, test, test.
Yes, yes. Hello, hello. Welcome.
Hello.
Hel- Well, it's a great honor to introduce our last speaker, and we're very grateful to have you here, Jean. And I was thinking about how I was going to introduce you, and I can tell about all the publications you did on mentoring. But I want to share something personal because I was in the opportunity to visit you in Boston in 2020, and you have a very nice dog, Cookie. Is
Oh,
Cookie there? Can you
Cookie's
show
in the
Cookie?
house.
Hey, can I get applause for Cookie? Is this Cookie's first applause?
Yes, it is. First
Nice.
international, at least.
Well, can I get a big applause for Jean Rhodes? We're looking forward to your speech.
Thank you so much. I'll share my screen real fast. Hold on. Can you see it? Oh, excellent. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much for all of you who stuck around till the very end. I really appreciate it. I know I'm somebody that often likes to dash out of meetings. So I know how valuable it is to have you here. I also want to thank Sylvia, who, against all odds, put together just the most amazing conference and summit. And I would do anything to be able to teleport there and be with you guys now and see my colleagues, particularly my amazing postdoctoral fellow, Dr. Alexandra Wernz, who is in the audience and is there to answer questions following this talk. So without further ado, I know I only have 30 minutes and I am a professor, so it's really hard to just not talk a lot and carry on much longer. So I'll just get right to the work. And what I decided to do today is really just bring you up to date on the latest things we're doing, because, I've been honored to have been able to return to the summit year after year. And I don't want to bore you with the same evidence or the same ideas. And so we're really going to focus on new studies that have come out in the past year. And just a call out to the Rhodes Lab. We are evidence-based. We try very hard to really follow the research and follow the latest trends. And I encourage any of you to go to the Rhodes Lab and you'll be able to find any of the papers that I talk about. You'll get the PDFs and you can download them there. I also want to thank, as I said, the wonderful work that Mentor has done to help me set up the Center for Evidence-Based Mentoring, all of the amazing doctoral students and postdocs I've had over the years, most recently Dr. Wernz, who's there, Dr. Sarah Schwartz, Dr. Liz Raposa, Dr. Stella Chua, and many others who have followed in my footsteps and are really, I think, enriching the field in new ways. So as I said, we have published a lot since 2021. We've kind of, and I really credit Geert Jan Stems and Mark Assenk and Leffe van Dam and others in the Netherlands for teaching our lab how to do meta-analysis. And, there's this saying, if you give someone a hammer, all the world is a nail. I'm looking at the field of mentoring through the lens of meta-analysis in new ways. And we currently have three more underway, which I can talk about that aren't even on this list, including one on group mentoring, one on technology delivered interventions, and one on something that you'll learn about today called supportive accountability, which is kind of the role of mentors in coaching young people who are using technology delivered interventions. I'm putting these up there also for you to bookmark in your mind, because you'll see there's papers that I've done with Professor Tom Keller, who I wish I could be seen in the Netherlands, and Professor Sam McQuillan, another rising star in our field, who I've had the privilege of working with. And so if any of these you want me to return to, please don't hesitate to ask. Most recently, a paper with Dr. Wernz on paraprofessional mentoring, led by Sam McQuillan and with my doctoral student, Matt Hagler. I will say that of all the papers that have come out in the past year or two, this is the one that I think is most important and the one that I'm most proud of. I'm going to focus, though, on the meta-analyses because what they can do is give us a basis for kind of thinking about the field in a very broad way. Meta-analysis is by some considered to be the highest quality of evidence for determining the impact of an intervention. And it doesn't matter whether the intervention is a new pharmaceutical or a new approach to cognitive behavioral therapy. What meta-analysis does is it takes all of the studies related to a particular topic, in this case, youth mentoring programs, and looks at them as an aggregate, puts them all together to determine the effect size. Now, the effect size is basically, I'll just show you, the difference between the treatment group and the comparison group. And there's just it's standardized, that difference. It's divided by the standard deviation. And so it's a way for us to see, is there an impact of this intervention? And there's no easy conventions in determining what is a good effect size. But I promise to get out of the stats portion of this momentarily, but I ask that you remember these numbers just sort of as a benchmark to help you understand the effectiveness of youth mentoring programs. Okay, so this is, all right, let me just tell you what I did. What I did is I looked at all the meta-analyses that had been done in the field of youth mentoring, and it began way back in 2002 with a really groundbreaking meta-analysis by my colleague David Dubois, all the way up to one that was led by my former postdoc Liz Raposa, who's now a professor at Fordham University. And basically what I did is I plotted the effect size across all of these and looked at it over the years. What are the trends? And here's the trend. And I was writing my book, Older and Wiser, which you can pick up at the summit, but this I did for that book, and I looked at it, and I'll never forget sitting in the library and just kind of plotting this out and looking at it, and then plotting out how many articles have been done since 2002 and how much US spending, and I'm sure across Europe, Asia also spending on mentoring programs. And what do we see? Just in your mind, as you look at that trend line, what do you conclude? Well, you conclude two things. One is that we're not really improving the effectiveness of youth mentoring, despite all of that investment of time and resources and relationships. And the effect is remaining pretty low. It's pretty small. It's on the small end. Now, if you were to take a similar plot for, say, child and adolescent psychotherapy, you would see an upward trend. You would see an upward trend for lots of other interventions. We're not seeing it in youth mentoring, and we need to understand why, and we need to fix it, because there's too many lives at stake right now. There's too many young people suffering from mental health issues, from the effects of poverty and the effects of trauma. We need to do better, and so we need to understand it. And I'm going to start with the meta-analysis that Liz Raposa led, and you'll see some Dutch names here because we really did have the great Gert-Jan involved in kind of teaching us how to do meta-analysis. And what we found was that the effect there was let me just read it. It was 0.21. But what I'm going to do now is I'm not going to just say, oh, we get low effects. I'm going to say, what do these meta-analyses tell us? And then I'm going to take those puzzle pieces and put them together into some recommendations. So the first thing that this tells us is that the effects are stronger when the person who's doing the mentoring has some background in professional helping. This is a signal that we keep getting across lots of studies that helping professionals do better. Now, how do we define helping professionals? These are people who have had experience working with young people, maybe teaching, counseling, volunteering even, but have experience working with young people. And so that tells us that maybe what we should be doing is strengthening the capacity of helping professionals to serve in this paraprofessional role as mentors, because we have been getting this effect for years, okay? And I write about that in this book, Older and Wiser, which, by the way, is really kind of a brain dump of 30 plus years of research into one place and says, this is kind of where we need to go. And what I try to do in that book and what I'm going to try to do with you today is put those puzzle pieces together. The first puzzle is, why aren't we moving the needle? The second, why are helping professionals doing better? But there's more. And the main conclusion that I draw, really, I pull from the incredible work of Sam McQuillan, who I'm sure you loved hearing from. I certainly was sorry to miss it live. And his colleague at the University of Virginia, Michael Lyons. And they really were among the first people to say, we need to find that sweet spot between just building a relationship or a friendship and doing fun things together and actually focusing on improving some skills and having goals that we work toward. And that when that is out of balance, when you're too focused on goals and skills, or when you're too focused on the relationship, you don't get as good effect. And he and others like Tim Cavell at the University of Arkansas and many others have said, look, we need to move toward really balancing a focus on goals with a focus on building, on relationship building. Now, this is a lot of data. And before I show it to you, I just want you to bear in mind those effect sizes. So remember, 0.2 is small. And on the left side, what you're going to see are programs that are really focused on the relationship. And on the right side are programs that combine relationship building with a real focus on a particular goal or skill that they're trying to do. You know that old saying, if you don't know where you're going, how will you know when you get there? And that's basically what we're seeing, that we don't really have a way to even measure outcomes when there's not a goal. So remember, on the left side is what I call the friendship model. These are mentoring programs that have traditionally, although they're moving in a different direction now, but have traditionally focused on, let's build a relationship, and that relationship is the active ingredient. That relationship alone should lead to lots of outcomes. And I want you to look at that mean effect, the effect size, okay? Because those effects are way lower than the average that I showed you a few slides back. These effect sizes are close to 0. And to give you any idea, if these were effect sizes coming out of a pharmaceutical trial, we would be, that's Cookie, sorry. Okay. Okay. Thank you for introducing Cookie, because now you get to know her. So we would be, if those were pharmaceuticals, we would be putting them on the shelf and we would be saying, let's start over. So that's what we really should be. Let me close the door. That's what we here. Cookie always upstages me every time I do anything. Cookie's the one that really gets all the attention. So on that side is the friendship model, and that should be your clue here, because remember, we're together these pieces. That model alone, just putting together non-specific, non-focused relationship is not enough, and that the best approaches are those that combine it with skills. Okay, and I want to draw particular attention to the work of my colleague Michael Karcher, who really look at the effect of his program. So when I see something like that, I say, there is a lot to be learned here. We're not giving up on mentoring. We are going to go and we're going to find out what works and we're going to spread it far and wide. And there's many other programs like this. So after I saw those, after we plotted those effects, we actually ran a follow-up meta-analysis using the data set that Liz Raposa and my colleagues had kind of compiled. But this time we had a new moderator. And the moderator was, is this program goal-focused? Is it non-specific, or is it goal-focused and targeted? Non-specific meaning, let's just get together and good things will happen. Targeted meaning, let's determine what we want to work on and then really work toward that goal and measure it. And what we see here is really interesting, that when we put that moderator in, that the effects of youth mentoring double. And that for particular outcomes that we care about, academic, mental health, social functioning, we're getting triple the effects if we're taking a more targeted, skills-focused approach. That's our wake-up call. That's the thing that we say, okay, now we have one of those puzzle pieces we can put into this model, because now we know it's no longer acceptable for us to just say, let's be friends and hang out together. Which, by the way, Europeans are much, and Asians are much less likely. The programs coming out of those continents are much less likely, but in the United States, that has been the dominant model, is just sort of this friendship model. So now we're going to move to particular populations where we're really focused on the needs of a particular group. Remember, this is the more targeted approaches. And my students, once they learn meta-analysis, said, let's look at the effects of youth mentoring programs for young people in the foster care system. And here, I want to show you something I found so interesting. Remember, we don't know what we're going to get. Being a researcher is such a, it's like a gift, because you get these ideas, you run these analyses, and then it's like you open a gift and you see what you get. And one of the things we find, first of all, is that the overall effect of programs that focus on youth in the foster care system are much stronger than sort of the general effects. They're 0.34, which gets us more toward, medium effects. But there was a really interesting moderator. Now, what a moderator is something that says, if this is present, it will bring about a stronger effect, okay? Peer mentoring was much stronger than intergenerational. So if you had a near peer, what we call like somebody who maybe just left the foster care system, serving as the mentor, the effect sizes were 3 times as high. Now that's so interesting, but it also tells me something. There again, there's like a little puzzle piece, and it says, wow, peer mentors may be more credible messengers, people who young people will listen to more than somebody who's much older, who may not have had that experience. And it's, in some ways, it's much easier to find peer mentors because, they're often in schools, they're in universities, and certainly the programs like Nightingale across Europe, like, the work that Oscar is doing and others are showing that college students, PERAC is another example, college students can be very powerful mentors. And so the next thing we did is we said, okay, wait, let me just set this up. Let's look at the effects of cross-age peer mentoring. Now, the person who's really done the most work on cross-age peer mentoring, again, is my colleague, Michael Karcher. And he defines it really as under 18 years old, because he says if they're old, much older, they're adults. So let's really look at high school students mentoring elementary, what we call elementary and middle school students, and see how that works, because there's been a lot of studies that do that. One of the beauties of cross-age peer mentoring is that you've got a captive audience. If you offer this within a high school, you've got lots and lots of potential mentors. And here we get, look at that beautiful effect size, 0.45. Now, remember what the overall effect size was for intergenerational, 0.21. We're talking double the effect. Again, brand new study, I think probably the most important meta-analysis we've done. And again, to see my colleague Jan there, helping us along the way, being our mentor in all of this. And what we find is that overall, cross-age peer mentoring is a very good model. But, and this is the huge but, there has to be a high level of adult oversight. You can't just high school kids with younger kids and expect them to be great mentors. You've got to train them and hold them to standards and give them a lot of supervision. And I would argue that some of that effect that we're seeing in peer mentoring is because we didn't trust high school students. So we gave them a lot of training, a lot of direction, a lot of goals, a lot of focus, which we might not be as concerned about with adults. And so because we were less kind of willing to just let them do their own thing and be non-specific, we are getting this nice effect, okay? But adult oversight is key to making sure that we get that effect, because look at that, it's right there, and for us to see that cross-age peer mentoring with adult oversight is the key to getting that kind of effect. Now I'm going to talk about a study I did with Lefe van Dam on youth-initiated mentoring. And here we're going to talk a little bit about more what is youth-initiated mentoring, but many of you in the Netherlands know it's where you train the young people to identify the caring adults in their lives and then train those caring adults. So you let the child, you teach the child to fish instead of handing them a fish. And here we get an overall effect size of 0.30. And don't we see it again? That helping background is a significant moderator. I want you to hold all these pieces together because they don't do it for you. These studies don't tell you. You're looking at a lot of data and you have to do the synthesis. So let's do this together. We're getting some really interesting things here that if you let young people choose their own mentor, if you are goal focused, if you have cross-age peer mentors who are credible messengers but are well supervised, you're going to improve the effectiveness of youth mentoring programs. So this is just sort of an aggregate of all of it. I just wanted to put it together for you. So overall, the effects of youth mentoring in our most recent and the most recent comprehensive meta-analysis of youth mentoring is 0.21, which is relatively small. In education, it's not that small, but it's and it's acceptable. But you get stronger effects when you have a focus on a particular population. You get really nice effects when you have a well-supervised, well-trained, focused peer mentor. Youth-initiated mentoring seems to be a promising and potentially much more scalable approach to youth mentoring. And the work of my current, soon-to-be former doctoral student, Kirsten Christensen, that when we really target these relationships, we get a stronger effect. Okay. So that's a lot of studies, a lot of information for you to take in. We'll pause for a second, see if Cookie has anything more to say and move on. So what we're saying is that, mentors can lead to positive outcomes, but only when they're well supported and they're using targeted evidence-based interventions. I could end here, but I can't because I have so much more to tell you. So let's keep moving, and I'll move quickly so I don't use up all my time. So in the work, yes. Okay, thank you. Keep me posted. So in the words of Tim Cavell, we need to move from thinking about the relationship as the intervention to the relationship as the context for targeted evidence-based intervention. Yes, that heart still needs to be there. We still need to have that relationship, that friendship, but let's use it toward a particular goal. And when I finished writing the book, I began to really think, well, how can the field of mentoring do that? And that's when and here's what the struggle was. A big program that's serving lots of young people, how do you target it? It's very easy to target if you're just serving one particular population, but what if every child that walks in the door has a different combination of issues, has different things they want to work on? Where are you going to get all those evidence-based approaches? And so with the hard work of Dr. Wernz, who can talk to you more about this, and many of my colleagues, we developed something called Mentor Hub. It's a nonprofit that is designed to use technology to help provide targeted evidence-based interventions. You've heard of something like Headspace or Khan Academy. These are interventions that mentoring programs can use. But what we do is we combine that with the friendship to make sure the child remains engaged in it. And that's the supportive accountability. Okay, because what we're seeing in the field of adolescent and child mental health is that some of the very best frameworks for dealing with things like anxiety, depression, trauma, suicidality, all of these things, there's now technology delivered interventions, but young people don't stick with them on their own. They need somebody to hold them accountable, to be on that journey with them, and that's what a mentor can do. So the mentor doesn't have to actually deliver the intervention, but they can support the young person's journey through it. And so the way, and Alex can explain more, but mentors download the app, they then check in and they decide what they want to work on. We then link them to best-in-class curriculum and tools, And then the mentor, using their app, can monitor whether or not the young person is using it, adjust the recommendations, and they can chat in a way that's secure. And then the program administrator can monitor it. And this is a framework that's going to be being used by Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, by universities and more. This is what the mood ring looks like. So we say, what would you like to work on? And they can drag their thing across, and across whether it's achievement, attention, behavior, sadness, whatever. And then the mentor knows what they're going to work on. So now we've got that targeted approach, and the evidence comes in because we link them to curriculum, resources, and apps that target those things. All right, now I'm going to pivot for 1 minute and just say that even if we were able to deploy mentors this well, mentors are a scarce resource. They remain a scarce resource. A study that I did with Liz Raposa and Nathan Dietz, we found that only 1% of US adults actually volunteer for 9 to 12 months a year. And that this isn't changing either. And so a lot of our work has been to say, okay, how can we leverage mentors to engage in evidence-based care, but we also need to get young people to reach out to the caring adults in their lives and train them as well. And some of the work that Lefebvre Van Done and Mark and my team and I have done is really looking at youth-initiated mentoring, looking at natural mentoring, and figuring out how we can harness those relationships in the same way. So I think we need to think about youth mentoring programs on the continuum. There's professional counseling, but there's not enough. So formal mentoring can be on that continuum of care. We also need to think about new models where we scaffold the informal mentoring that exists in every school, in every neighborhood, in every place of worship, and have young people reach out to the caring adults there and train them to provide that supportive accountability. So here's our key takeaways. We need to shift professional tasks to the mentors to bridge gaps in mental health. We're not going to do it. And I encourage you to talk to Dr. Wernz more about this. We're not going to do it just by creating more therapists. We've got to do this task shifting, or what, stepped care. I think probably Sam has talked about that with you, that we reserve the professionals for the young people who need the most, and then we get frontline caring adults to fill in some of those gaps. We need to build relationships and work toward meaningful goals. We need to deploy well-supervised, trained cross-peer mentors far more regularly. And we need to calibrate the risk to the intervention. Some people need that professional care. Some people need early care from paraprofessionals. Some people just need to be encouraged to recruit a mentor within their own life. And all of these ideas are much more fleshed out in Older and Wiser. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the Chronicle of Evidence-Based Mentoring, it's free. And I don't bombard your inbox, but every couple of weeks, I'll send you the newest latest thinking on these topics. And you can link to research, and you can also search, and it goes back 10 years of summaries of peer-reviewed journal articles. And I just want to thank everybody for listening, and sorry for the speed, but I wanted to get a lot across to you.
Yeah, the mic is on again. Thank you very much for showing us these insights. And I was trying to write down all the key insights, but I was not able to write them all down. But thank you for giving us these very practical tips on where to start and how we can, as a community, improve the quality of mentoring. I think it relates very well to the title of the summit this year, linking formal and informal mentoring in a holistic approach. So thanks for ending the presentation with something that relates to the title of the summit. I think we have time for a few questions, if that's okay with you, Jean.
Oh, I welcome them.
Okay.
Yes. So
I'll show you the audience for a bit. I'll turn around the laptop.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending this talk.
Yeah, I will repeat the question. Yeah.
okay, hi, Jean. I'm Lois. Thank you for an interesting talk. I was wondering, how would you explain the findings that mentors in a caring profession are better mentors, and the finding that cross-age peer mentors are really effective, because you would say that people with a caring profession have more experiences guiding youngsters, and maybe cross-age peer mentors don't.
Yeah. Two things I would say about that. I am not convinced that there's something magical about peer mentors. I think what that study is picking up on is that peer mentors are provided with a lot more direction and supervision and training than a lot of intergenerational mentors, because we don't trust them as much. Believe me, I've had I'm the mother of 3 kids who have been through high school. I wouldn't just put my high school boys in particular just hanging out with junior and high school kids. They need a lot of training, a lot of direction, a lot of support. I think one of the things that study is finding is that when you provide that, you get better effects because it's more targeted. But the other thing is there may be something there. It may be that a young person is more likely to listen to somebody they think is cool and like them, just a little bit older, and shares their worldview and their experience. And so we need to kind of study that more. I think there's another study where we unpack those effects.
Thank you. Did it answer your question? Maybe I can turn around. I'll be careful with the laptop. I just heard there was a 3,000 euro laptop, but there was Lois asking the question there. Do we have any more questions?
Oh, it was her. Okay.
Everybody's shy.
I don't know if Alex, you want to share something?
To talk to Dr. Alex Werntz, who's in the audience, because she's very aware of all of these findings. She is the associate director of the Center for Evidence-Based Mentoring.
One moment, Jean. Sorry, I unplugged the cable. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have turned the... Oh, one moment. Can you say something?
Yes, test.
Yeah, you're through the laptop. I'm looking at the technician. Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry, Wouter. He told me not to touch it, but I did. I'm sorry, I buy you a beer after the summit. I'm so glad that we have you here. Otherwise, there would have been a disaster. Get an applause for Wouter. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's open yet. Can you say something, Jean?
Test.
Once more, sorry.
Test.
Yes, we're back online. Thank you, Wouter.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, can you please repeat the last
All
part
right.
for us? I won't touch the
Yes,
laptop.
what I wanted to say is that I wish I could be there, but I am so fortunate to have Dr. Alex Werntz there, who is the Associate Director of the Center for Evidence-Based Mentoring at UMass, a leading scholar in both child mental health and mentoring. And she will be on the ground to answer any questions that you have about anything that was covered in this talk. And I also encourage you, I don't think Alex has spent much time in Amsterdam, and she's heading down this afternoon. So if you have recommendations for her, I'm sure she'd love that as well.
Can you maybe stand up? Can we get an applause for, yes, thank you. Right. Well, thank you very much. I think there was no more questions. Oh, I see a question there. Yeah, I'm not turning the laptop around anymore, though.
Okay, that's fair.
Good afternoon. My question is concerning you spoke about helping profession background. I am conducting a study in Zambia, Africa, and so far I'm using the grounded theory study methodology. So I discovered that it seems that a lot of young people there in Zambia are going through a lot. And it seems that mentors, that was my conclusion so far, that mentors need to go through psychosocial counseling in order for them to mentor the mentees better. I just wanted to know if psychosocial counseling is something that you recommend or you even speak about when you are conducting researches or you are talking about mentoring there in the United States, and if it's something that we should consider, because I think I want to propose that to the mentoring fraternity or movement.
Yes, that is a very, very interesting question. And I just want to encourage the speaker to reach out to me directly so we can have more of a conversation about this because it's a big topic. But I will say that I think that we need to kind of begin to, and I think Europe has done it more than the US and Africa, but begin to think about paraprofessionals, bachelor's level, or even high school level, caring people getting much more training than they're currently getting. And we need to think about mentoring as having benefits to the mentor as well. It's not just a one-way street, that they could be getting certified. They could be getting, certificates, micro-credentials, college credits for the training that they go through. Because the better trained they are, the better supervised they are, the more likely they are to be able to use that hour or so that they have with the young person effectively. It doesn't mean that everyone has to come from a helping background. What I think these findings are telling us is that the helping background has given them some bit of a leg up and that experience and training, but we could be providing it to more. And I think that we need to begin to really harness the mentoring relationship much more directly and effectively, particularly around addressing mental health issues, which are becoming, a very big problem in the US and around the world.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think we
We
need
have
to.
a last question.
We have a last question from.
Yeah, from the online.
We have an online
audience.
question.
Yeah. So in one of the slides, there was a program mentioned called Stephen Kidd's Developmental Mentoring Model. Could you give us more info about it, please? It's Laura Carduz from Barcelona.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that. Gus, could you repeat that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. At one of the slides, there was a program mentioned Stephen Kidd's Developmental Mentoring Model. Could you give us more info about it, please?
Yes, so that is a program called CAMP, C-A-M-P, and it is developed by a colleague named Michael Karcher at the University of Texas, San Antonio. And I am in the process of trying to see if we can figure out how to work with him through Mentor Hubs so that we can share that much more widely. But I would reach out to Michael Karcher. He's a wonderful scholar and person.
Thank you. I think that there was the Q&A, right? Can I get a big applause for Professor Dr. Jean Rhodes?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving us this latest insights, and I hope to see you again at the next summit.
Oh, yes, I do too. Thank you so much for inviting me and enjoy.
And say hi to Cookie.
Okay.
Thank you, Jean.